Welcome to the podcast Running Toward. This podcast tells stories of ordinary people who couldn't look away once they saw the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted. Our guests share heartbreak that led them to take reluctant and unexpected small, faithful steps toward the most vulnerable in their communities. Not because they had a plan, and not because they felt ready, but because they couldn't unsee their pain. You'll hear how people living normal lives discover that getting closer changed them. Their comfort mattered less, their grip on uncertainty faded, and their faith got feet in quiet, everyday ways. Ending the crisis for one or for all isn't a quick fix. It's a long, slow, often messy journey alongside one of the most overlooked and misunderstood groups in our community. Running Toward gives you a front row seat to the hidden crisis in foster care and the families impacted, and to the ordinary people who choose not to look away. Hey, Running Toward listeners, today we have a great podcast. So if you've ever thought, hey, I'll do something after XYZ happens, then this podcast is for you today. So I get to talk with my great friend, Brittany here. She is a wife, a foster mom, a biological mom, adopted mom. She reluctantly started leading a ministry at her church, and she's loved Jesus her whole life and served and always planned to adopt someday, but wasn't necessarily how she thought it might play out. And so today's story, you're just going to hear how God called her into a lot of shifts and right turns that maybe she wasn't anticipating. So let's jump right in. Brittany, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I know you're super excited about this.
Super excited.
This is not Brittany's jam, so we're very excited that she's on today. But just to start, kind of tell me just a little bit about your family right now. Like, what does it look like at the Flournoy home on a Wednesday? What does your family make up, and kind of what does it look? What's your rhythm?
Yep. So we are a family officially with 5 kids. So we have 2 adopted sons and then 3 biologicals, and we are currently fostering a 1-year-old. A typical day would be chaos. And
as
so
one would expect with 5 children.
Especially with 2 1-year-olds. Like it's a constant battle of where are we going, who's going where, or do we have all the kids in the car that we need to go to. So we are a part homeschool family that adds extra layers to all things that we do. Very involved in our church. So we're there every Sunday and every Wednesday, and leading ministry and doing different aspects with that. And so it is a lot. But we are glad that God has called us into this journey and into this chaos.
And your husband does what for a living?
He's a firefighter.
So
he's a firefighter in New Braunfels.
Yeah, awesome. So, like you said, you and Jason deeply rooted in church life. I know you both kind of grew up. That was part of your stories growing up. So, what did faith look like in your home before foster care entered or adoption entered the scene?
We both grew up in church our whole lives. So we were there every time the doors were opened. Yeah. We had we started dating when I was 14, and so we got married when I was 20. And we always knew we wanted to adopt. We did mission trips. Always felt kind of led in that kind of missional aspect. And so we were in Africa for almost a month. We'd gone to Belize and Ecuador and led trips for our church. And it's something that we both have a heart of just wanting to share the gospel with others, and wanting that to be kind of the heartbeat of what our family does, and still have dreams and hopes of doing an overseas mission trip with our family. And so we kind of were in that space, and before we got married, we knew we wanted to adopt, and we knew that was something that God was going to have play out in our lives. We weren't sure when. And so we just kind of waited and got married and had the kids, and took them to church and Mom's Day out and all the things leading up to it. Yeah.
So sounds like maybe you were thinking more international adoption would be the path.
Probably.
So then you start learning about vulnerable kids in our neighborhood, in our community. How did that play out? How did you become aware of kiddos in foster care, or even kind of your first story of how adoption entered your family?
We, which is always so fun. So we had 2 kids. So we had Kylie and Parker, and they were probably 1 and 3. at the time. And we really felt like this is the time God's calling us to adopt. And we didn't really have friends that really had adopted. We had one friend couple that had, but he did medical mission trips. And so they've adopted 13. And we were like, that's probably not the route that we're going to do.
Right.
And so we just weren't sure what that looked like. And so I quit what I was working at the time because I knew, okay, I want to focus on whatever this is. And so I just Googled it, and it gives you 3 answers. And I'm pretty sure it's still the 3 answers today.
Probably.
You have the international adoption, you have private adoption, and you have foster care adoption. We honestly looked at the pricing. I would never say not to adopt just because of pricing, but that is not the path God led us. And so private and international, I was like, oh gosh, $60,000. I don't know, maybe not. So let's look into foster care. Let's see what this is about. So we signed up for a meeting. Jason, because of his work schedule, could never align the in-person meetings because this is pre-COVID, so everything was in person.
Right.
And so I gave up on him, and I thought, I will just go. I will go, and I will see, is this even where the Lord is calling us to do? What is this even about? Because we knew nothing about foster care. Our church never really spoke on it. We didn't have friends that were involved with it. And so I had no frame of reference. I had no one to ask. I had no one to question.
So you're kind of going in blind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I showed up at this meeting, which honestly I was late to. I almost didn't get in because the doors were locked, and I slid in, sat down, and they're explaining just what is happening in our city. And at that time, I had no idea that this was going on in our city because we'd been to mission trips. We had been and seen kids that needed homes and that were orphans in other countries. And so when they are laying out the statistics for our area specifically, not only for the kids, but the generational cycle that it typically tends to be, I broke. They played a video, the removed video that is very...
That's a great video. We'll try to add a link to that at the bottom of the show notes here.
And so that was something that God used to really, I didn't even fully understand the whole video. Like as I watch it now, there's just different layers of trauma that I understand more that kind of play out in that video. But I watched it and it was broken. And so I left there. I didn't talk to anybody because I was too raw to even know what questions I wanted.
Do you remember what was the most what was the gut-wrenching, what was the thing that pushed you over the edge? You had to have known kids were not raised. I mean, not all kids were raised in great homes. That wasn't a shock. But what was the thing that was oh, I had no idea?
I think because we grew up in a Christian home. And so all of my extended family were believers. And we grew up in an area that maybe they weren't all believers, but there wasn't this prevalent, you never saw kids that came to school looking abused, or you never saw any of that. It was just very morally kind of I guess. And so listening to just the types of abuse that were happening and to the types of neglect, and that not only that these kids are going through, but their parents probably live through the same type of thing. I couldn't reconcile my own faith and my own journey and my own kind of feeling like I'm in this bubble of a world, and these kids that I had no idea were going through this are just a doorstep away, in some instances. And so I was burdened just to do something. And I honestly didn't even know what that even looked like, but I wanted to step in for these kids, to have a home in that transition period, and for their parents, honestly, too. And so walking into that meeting, the thought was, okay, this may be where we adopt. Walking out of that meeting, it was not that same feeling. The feeling and recognition of God has given these children to these parents, and yes, they're broken, and yes, they're not healthy, and yes, there may be some issues, but how else are they supposed to know how to do when they weren't raised any better?
Yeah.
And the opportunity that presented to allow Jesus to use us to step in for these kids, but also for their parents.
Yeah.
In that way.
I think I told on the first podcast that I did, but I had the same kind of moment. It was after we actually got into foster care, but I was sitting in the DFPS office waiting to do visits with our first little girl's mom. And the more weeks that we did it, the more she and I started talking because we were always waiting on the caseworker. And it was a moment in that office where I was like, oh, this baby I'm holding was her 20 years ago. Like, how would I have wanted somebody to treat this baby 20 years from now if I knew her story and I got to hear that, her dad was not in the picture, and then her mom died and she was raised by grandma, and then grandma died. And it was like, well, of course you don't know how to have healthy relationships. You don't know how to take care of your kids. You've gotten a domestic violence situation. Like, it totally makes sense. Yeah. It was, because I had, didn't have a lens for it. I just didn't know that kids were treated like this in the beginning. So you kind of felt burdened that day, not necessarily we're going to adopt, but we're going to do something. So Jason's clueless at this point as to what you've just witnessed and gone through. So take us through when you come back home and you're like, babe, like.
Yeah. So I shared with him, and he has always been, I'm a control person. And he is not as much that in a lot of areas. And so he's kind of go with the flow. And so I'm sharing with him and he's like, yeah, that sounds like something we need to step into. And so we really thought, okay, this is the path the Lord has laid out and this is what's going to happen. And still got stalled from doing anything else. And so I showed up in the meeting in October. And January, we still gone to no more classes because, in person, even with just two kids, apparently was just too hectic for us. Life. So, yeah. So January comes, God brought us our Brayden, who we adopted in June of that year, and it wasn't through foster care. And even with that, we still thought, okay, God brought us him. We're adopting him. It's outside of foster care, but we still want to do foster care. Like, what does this look like? And so both of us were planning on, we'll get through this adoption, finalize him, and then we'll get licensed so that we can do sibling sets. Because one of the things in the meeting that really struck me was how many siblings get separated in the system. Right. And so that was our plan. I thought it was a great plan. I thought the Lord had just put his hand and said, yep, this is what you're going to do. And so adoption happened in June. And then in July, we found out we were pregnant. Surprise. And so it was honestly a very heavy time for me. Not only because my control nature and I'm a planner by nature. And so my plans were now thwarted.
Completely.
Everything that I thought that the Lord had laid out, completely gone. Because I knew, even with a bleeding heart, I've got now 4 kids that were 6 and under. Yeah. And I can't add something else into this situation right now. And I just also walked through a season with a friend who had miscarriages. And so there was guilt over I'm pregnant and this wasn't the plan and she's not. And how do I navigate this? And so it really took a few weeks of just praying out and crying out to the Lord and being like, you are the giver of joy and you are the giver of this child. Like, I need the joy for this child. And he granted it. And so we told family and friends, and they were about as shocked as we were. And because it was not planned, and our parents are lovely and loving, and I'm sure in their minds were like, oh, wow, we went from 2 grandkids to 4 in a split instant. And so we had Logan, little bundle of joy the following year. This kind of, I don't know, wrestling of just unrest with this foster care space. So still stayed.
So it still didn't go away, even though you're like, not even able to shower by yourself at this point.
And
I'm
I'm
still burdened by what you heard in that meeting.
And I still am not exposed to anything beyond that first meeting. And so I still am. So this is what now, a year and a half after that first meeting that Logan's here. My cousin and I are kind of talking about it. She lives in Austin, and she had kind of gotten it into the respite babysitting and involved with different organizations up there. And so she would talk about what she's doing, but I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
I'm barely
surviving with four
these kids. And so Logan was almost a year when we connected with the Alliance. And so I saw a Facebook post and I thought, oh, here's something like I could just offer our church to host a meeting, and that would be fantastic.
That's what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah. And I thought this is my foot in. This is my foot in until we can do it.
Yes. And so you have 4 kids, 6 and under.
Mm-hmm.
Your husband's a firefighter with a crazy wild schedule. How are you starting? You're starting to homeschool now, probably. You got 1 in school. So you also live in the homeschool life, which is a whole lot of itself. And then you see our posts, and then what was the first thing you came to? Like, did you come to one of our meetings?
No. No. So to explain what the Lord has really done would take like way longer than we have here today. I saw the post at the time. Y'all were looking for a place to host a babysitting collaborative.
There it is.
And doing in-person things.
Yeah.
And so a friend, not even a close friend, like one of those acquaintances.
Right.
You like met once and you Facebook friended them and they shared it. And so I'm like, oh, this sounds like something like I could do. So I looked on the website and I literally, I can't even recount how long I sat there looking at the website, at the inquiry form where you just fill out your name and you like check a box of like, I would like more information on XYZ. And so I checked the box that I would like more information about hosting babysitting collaborative. And I thought, oh, that was a big deal. I just submitted this inquiry about potentially hosting something at our church, but that's okay. Like I can do that.
Right.
This is under my control. This is something I can handle. Submitted it and thought, okay, done. We're just going to sit here and wait. And then I waited, I don't even know how long, day 2, I don't know. And then I get a phone call from you. And it's so funny how the Lord works, because when I think back to, this would have been 2018, so almost 8 years ago.
Right.
And where he's brought me, it's really quite amazing. And so
100%.
You called me, and your first question was, does your church have a foster adopt ministry? And I was like, no. I clearly did not check that on this inquiry form. And I sat there for a long enough time to know that this was one of the options that I could have checked had I felt the call to do that. And so I was like, no, like we just want to host the babysitting collaborative. Like we've got a great space. And so you pressed in, and you immediately, without flinching, were like, well, I really think you should pray about it. And I did not know you at all. So you were a stranger calling me and telling me that I should be praying about something that I absolutely thought, no. There's 4 kids that I'm barely surviving and keeping my head above water. Like I can organize and reserve our church for one event. Like this is my capacity level right now. And so we talked, and we get off the phone, and again, you remind me like, okay, I think you should pray. And I was like, okay, we'll see. I don't know. Right. So I get off the phone.
It's almost like when I prayed about foster care, I was like, I'll pray about it. I'm already shaking my head no. Yeah.
And so we get off the phone, and it's time to go pick up the kids from the mom's day out. And I send my cousin a text, and I was like, hey, I just got off the phone with this lady, and I don't really know what she's doing or thinking, or I don't know, but she asked me about starting this ministry at the church, and I said no, but she really told me I should pray about it, and so I'm going to at least do that, because at least I'd learned that in my walk, to like not discount what God may be doing.
So even in your control, you still had enough faith and a belief in the Lord that you're like, all right, like I had my plan and I had what I was, scenario I set, but I will still actually, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about you is you're like, I mean, that's not in the plan, but I will, and you actually do pray about it and you actually do listen.
Right.
When the Lord's like, I know that was your plan, but here's where we're going.
Yes. I mean, and I try to be faithful to do that. And I do have my plans, and I've been trying to not have my plans, but it's just innate in me. Right. And so I send her that text. I hop in the car to go get the older two, and the song Oceans comes on. I'm not even out my driveway, and it's talking about where my feet may fail, and just trusting him and leaning into him. And I just start bawling. Not even out of my driveway, and instantly knew, okay, Lord, right. I have no idea what this is going to look like moving forward. This feels like a lot. This feels like something that is not in my wheelhouse.
Right.
But you've got it. And so if this is where you're leading, okay. And so I called you back, and then you connected me to Jocelyn, and then we started the ministry, which was scary.
Right. But I remember you had all the no's. You're like, I haven't fostered. I have 4 small children. Yes. Like all the things. You're like, I mean, I'm not your ideal candidate for this
not
right now. And yet, that's what the Lord was. That was the next step.
It was, and I feel like this is like, I'm like the poster child for like, if you think you need things together for the Lord to use you, look at Brittany. She clearly does not. And yet he still has used her in X, Y, and Z ways. I feel like this is my lot in life, is just to help everybody realize you don't have to have it together.
See, what I see is that you have the courage to say yes when you know that it's really the Lord leading you. You don't run from it. You're not doing backflips over it. You're not excited about it, but you're like, I mean, if you're telling me this is where we're going, you have the courage to go do it. And that's in these threads of all these podcasts we've done so far. That is the theme. It's not people that are like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing and comfortable and easy, and I'm just going to run towards it. It's more of like, I can't look away. I have a faith that tells me that the things that God's going to ask me to do are not going to make sense. They're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to be easy. And I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah. And that's the beauty of like these stories that we get to tell, is that's the only way we end the foster crisis, is when people like you, whose lives don't make sense to enter this space, are like, but this is where Lord's leading. Yeah. So here we go. Here we go. Pack up the car seats. We're going.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started the ministry, and Jocelyn got to walk alongside. And really, I remember our first meeting. I told her, I was like, I have no plans. I have no ideas. I have no strategies. I have nothing to bring to the table. Like, you will literally have to tell me exactly what to do and how to do, and I will do it. Like, I will do whatever you tell me to do. And so the Lord was gracious, and she was gracious and understanding and encouraging. And just step by step, we kind of grew the ministry and talked to our leadership. And that was in 2019 that we officially launched it in our church as a full-fledged ministry to people to be aware of and a part of, because that was one of the burdens that I had, was wanting our church to be more aware.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of my story. It's part of your story of it wasn't that I was actively not serving in that space. It's I didn't know it existed. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. And and then that's part of, what we get to do as the Alliance now, is be that microphone for the system. To be like, hey, by the way, there's kids here that need help, and you have gifts, talents, skills, passions that can be used to serve in a variety of ways. So even though now we're 2 years out, at least, you went to the meeting, you felt the Lord, you had thought about adoption from younger years, you felt kind of got a pivot of foster care, but then pregnancy and 4 small kids and starting to homeschool. And you're like, okay, well, maybe not that now. Maybe I'll just got connected. We'll start a ministry at the church. Then what happens?
Well, I thought everything was great.
Right. You're check the box, check the box.
Yeah, we've checked all the boxes. Okay, Lord, we're not actually having to foster. We are still making a difference by just being a voice in our church. And he drew others into fostering. And so we went from a church that I think had one foster family that had just gotten connected because they knew the family. Like it wasn't even a true foster. And so we went from that to when we did our first info meeting, we had 4 families that were getting licensed in that process. And so I thought, oh, wow, okay, this is where we're at. Like, this is what I'm here to do, is to encourage them and support them and love them in all those ways. And so, and it went well for about 6 months of that, of just like, this is it. And then there's those feelings of like, what about you? Like, should we open our home? Like, we're coming alongside these families, and they're hard, and in these seasons that are stressful, and they don't know what's going to happen.
And now you're getting exposed to the foster care system, which there's one thing to be exposed to the kids, and their needs, and the the lives that they've gone through, thinking about the biological family. But now you add on the layer of this very convoluted, confusing, oftentimes frustrating system.
Yes.
So now you're getting to see, oh, now I see.
This is, yes. And so learning all the acronyms, which was super fun.
So
and honestly, I'm grateful that the Lord allowed us to like have these families that were in it before us, because we got to learn from them.
Right.
And my expectations that I would have had walking into fostering got shifted in a way different way than had I just gone in thinking, I'm here to love kids and I love Jesus and it's going to be great.
And the system is set up for that.
Yeah. And the system is for, like, they're going to make all the right decisions for these kids. Sure. And it's going to be great because all things. And so
we're all on the same team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And so walking with these families and their hard stories and their hard journeys, like there starts to be a wrestling within my spirit. And I honestly was just like, I'm not even going to voice it. Like I'm not going to talk to Jason. I'm not going to talk to anybody that there's a wrestling of maybe it's time. Maybe we need to open our.
How old are your kids now?
Logan would have been 2. So 2, 4, 6, and 8.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of them are feeding themselves at this point, but there's still, it's a lot of hands on.
There is. And so I thought, nope, it's my bleeding heart. This is not the Lord. Like I justified it and I excused it away. And I was like, nope, we're just going to love these families that are in it. I'm going to pour my attention and focus on them and my kids. And this is just it. This is going to be what it is. And so, which it was for, I don't even know how many weeks. It kind of went on like that, which is not, it really is unlike me to not even share anything with anybody. Right. But I really was like, I don't want to even voice it.
Right.
And so Jason and I had a getaway. And so the first night of our getaway, we're just sitting and talking, and I don't even know how it brought up, but he brings it up and he's like, hey, what do you think about us like starting to get licensed to foster? And I wish I could say, I was like, yes,
sounds great.
This is what the
Lord spoke to you. Yes.
Been leading. Like my heart sunk and I was like, oh, shoot. You too? Like, yeah. This isn't just me. Like this is the Lord.
I can't blame this on you later. Dang.
And so, so we talked that night and we thought, okay, if he's speaking to you and he's speaking to me, even though I wanted to blame it on other things, like, okay, we'll do this. And so, we did not go fast. We were not like, okay, we're going to be obedient and joyful and expedite this process as quick as we can. Like we were obedient. Like that was the level that we were at. And so we started the classes. Again, this is pre-COVID, so everything was still in person and our schedules are still crazy. Right. And so we started the classes in November of 2019, and it took until July of 2020. So we got licensed in the midst of COVID, which, I mean, us not having gotten into it anyway, I mean, I don't know how different it would have been or not have been. And so we got licensed and we were going to be open for sibling sets because that was still my heart, was I want to keep sibling sets together as much as we can and as much as the Lord allows.
So when you and you've got this wrestling. Y'all head away on your weekend. Can you go back to that moment? Like, what was the fear, or what was the like? What was the like? I don't want to do. Like, what was the like? Why were you not telling anybody? Why did you not? When Jason said it, your heart sank. What was the fear, the concern? Was it the I'm out of control? Was it the what's going to happen? Like,
it really probably comes down to I felt like I was already drowning.
Sure.
Because he worked a lot, especially at that time. And our kids, I mean, I've got 3 boys, 2, 4, and 6 at that time, that were literal chaos. Like, just all boy, all the time.
Right. You're just trying to keep them from killing themselves.
Yes. And so I did not feel like I was the mom that God had really called me to be to them. And so why on earth would he call me to now be a second mom to more kids? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I am not equipped. I'm not qualified to do that, because I've had friends that, and God bless them, like, they've gotten into fostering, and like part of that reasoning is like, oh, we're good parents. Like, that was never my reasoning.
No. And I think that's it's come up in other podcasts too, of like, nobody, well, I mean, maybe you knew some people. I didn't know anybody that went into it and was like, you know what, I'm nailing it with these biological kids. I should probably take care of other people's kids. No, we were all like, I mean, you're seeing how I'm handling the ones that you had me birth. You really think I should go and do this with other people's kids? This doesn't seem like your best plan, but
and so it was really just that fear of how can I parent even more kids well that are going to be coming from trauma when I don't even feel like I'm doing a good enough job with the 4 that he's already entrusted me with.
So how did you get past those, maybe lies is too strong of a word, but those feelings of inadequacy, feelings of like, I'm not enough as it is. Why would you give me more? How did you get past that?
I wish I could say I got past it. I think it really comes down to like, my heart's desire is really obedience. And so when I clearly know that God is asking something of me, it makes everything else fade away. And so in those moments of starting ministry or saying yes to, okay, let's start this fostering process, like in those moments, it was very clear that this is what he was calling us to do. And so all of my excuses didn't matter. Because I had enough faith to trust and know that if he's calling us into it, even if I don't feel equipped and even if I feel like I'm going to mess something up, that he would still use it in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's the, we obviously this is about foster care, but you see that a lot in faith life, just in general, that the competency doesn't come before the yes, or the I've got all my ducks in a row, so now I can say yes to this. It's always, I don't think you're seeing my life appropriately to, if you think that I can add this or, go and do this. I think that's, he doesn't call the equipped, he equips the call, the little saying that a lot of people say, but it's true. Because if it made sense, then where's God? Where's faith? Where's the supernatural? If people are like, oh, well, it makes sense. Like, you're nailing it doing this. So clearly you would just add this. And so I think that's the beauty of how, despite how hard and messy and chaotic the system is, the beauty of it is seeing that even in the midst of all that, you can see God continually giving manna for the day. Like, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to handle this 5 years from now, but I'm going to tell you how you're going to get through Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got these, things that are spinning in your head, but you have enough faith. You're like, hey, if God's calling me to this, then all of these things have to get smaller, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Did Jason have any of these fears? Like, was he like worried about it? Was he like, I don't know that I can be a dad or provide for more kids?
No, I think, I don't know if it comes from just our family background or just our faith and doing mission trips. And if anybody has ever gone on mission trips, like, nothing ever goes according to plan.
Correct.
Especially overseas. And so having gone through those, and just you adapt and you do whatever it is that is before you that day. And so I am grateful that every yes that we've had, we've always been unified, knowing this is what the Lord is calling us to do in this moment. And so I'm sure
similar, like, this is okay. God's calling us. He's
a very matter of fact, move on. I'm a little bit more emotional about all things. And so he didn't necessarily go through all of the same struggles and emotions that I may had to have processed through it. But he was just like, nope, this is just it. So we're doing it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. So now you're fostering. Tell me about that. You're open to fostering. Tell me about that call that led to the first placement. Take me back to that time. What were the emotions? What was the thought process? How did that play out in your home?
So we had 2 calls before we actually said yes to placements. We had 1 call, which the beauty of foster care, and what I kind of learned in that info meeting, and I definitely learned in trainings, was you say yes to what you want to say yes to. You don't have to say yes just because they call. And so the first one our agency had called us about were these 2 girls that were already in a foster home, and they were looking for an adoptive home. And honestly, it was very hard because it's our it's the first call.
Right. You're like, we're one and done.
And we're like, well, I thought the Lord had called us to just foster.
Right.
Is he saying something different now? Like, what is this? And so, again, I'm the emotional one. Jason is like the clear-headed one. And so I'm like back and forth over what are we supposed to do with these girls? Like, they need homes. They need forever homes. Like, they are worthy of a forever home. Like, are they supposed to be ours? And Jason, after me having days of wrestling, was just very matter of fact, like, no, like, we got into it because we just want to foster and we want to help to reunify. Like, no. And I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
No.
Right.
No. The answer is no. And then we got a call for girls that we actually kind of knew and were familiar with. And we currently also had our AC was broken. So we were living with my parents for about a week and a half. And so when that call came in, I was like, I don't think this is a good fit. And so then I was like, they're not going to call us anymore. We keep saying no. Like, we have gone through this whole process in rigmarole, and we're just saying no to everything they're saying. So then we finally get a call, and that probably all happened. Those 2 calls happened probably within the first 10 days of us being licensed. And so about 2 weeks after we were licensed, we get a call for sibling set. And we don't have great frame of reference for how this still is playing out or what the norm is, because the ones that have done it in our group, some of the kids that they got connected to were like specific situations. And so we got a call at 11 p.m. about an emergency placement for a 1 and 2-year-old. And so we looked at the paperwork. We're like, they fit our like criteria. And so we're like, okay, I guess it's a yes. So we say yes. Jason, if this tells you differences, he goes right back to sleep. He's like, it's going to be hours before they come.
Wow.
We should get sleep. And
this is like totally the difference between men and women, though, because that would totally be something. I don't remember my husband ever doing that, but it would totally be something. He'd be like, okay. And I'm like, no, you're not thinking about car seats, cribs, clothes, bottles, diapers, like all the things that a mom's brain just like starts spinning on. The guys are like, they'll be here in 2 hours. I'm going to get some sleep.
And so I was like, oh, okay. I let him. I go downstairs because there's no way my brain is going to go to sleep. So they showed up at 2:30, 3 in the morning. And at this time, we're thinking, oh, this is what all placements look like. Like, they're always going to come to us at 3 in the morning.
Right.
They do not. And so they came. These particular kids did not have a lot of history. And so they were at a stranger's house, and their parents had been, I guess, panhandling. I don't know asking for money in a kind of convenient strip center area. And this woman had volunteered to take them because it was July and it was hot, and she didn't think a 1 and 2-year-old should be out there in the heat. And these parents let her take
Stranger.
Yeah. And so at that point, they hadn't made contact with the parents. And so investigators are dropping them off. And I'm like, what on earth is going on?
Right.
And so we get them, we sign all the paperwork, they leave by like 4:00. And then we're like, okay, now we're going to try to get them to sleep. Our 4 are still asleep. They've been asleep. They have no
idea. They have 2 new siblings.
What is going on? Because at that point, we had a room that was just, these were going to be the kids' room, that whoever they came. So nobody was sharing a room at that point. And so the 1-year-old boy goes down without a problem. He's exhausted. 2-year-old girl did not go to sleep. And so it took 4 hours of me in the room until she fell asleep by 8 a.m., which then everyone else is up. And so Jason got up with the other kids because he had already gotten, a few hours of sleep. So he was great. And he took care of the other kids. I slept a little bit until the 2 woke up, and we had them. And I thought, okay, this is it. We're going to love these kids. We're going to help them transition. Eventually, I'm sure we'll get to meet the parents, and like, this is still my plan. This is still the plan. We're going to walk alongside parents, and we're going to help reunify and da-da-da. And at that point, I had heard most placements are like 6 to 12 months, maybe 18 months. So in my head, I'm like, great, this is
settling in.
Yeah. And so this is going to be a challenge at first. So we had them. They had a sibling that was not with them when they were placed with us, that they ended up tracking the parents down. He was 5, and they placed him in a different home 2 days after we got ours. And so they had told us from the beginning, we're going to look for a replacement to see if they can take all 3, which I was like,
yeah, sure.
That sounds great. We asked if we could keep them, but there's a 6 max limit. Yep. We were at our max, so they wouldn't even allow us to consider the 5-year-old. And so we had them, and the trauma and abuse that these 2 had gone through were more extreme than most of the kids that we've had. And so, but they're our first placement. So we have no frame of reference over what these behaviors are. And so the 2-year-old fought everything. So bedtime, bath time, car seats, clothing, diapers, hair, everything was this battle and this fight. She wanted nothing to do with Jason. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't touch her without her completely losing her mind because of what she had gone through. And so we're making progress, though. I say I feel like I'm making progress because I'm the only one that she's even willing to kind of interact
bedtime
with.
Took 4 hours, now it takes 3. Everything's starting to get, I remember that.
And so she's going in her car seat on her own, and we've had him now about 2 weeks, and it's still like chaotic, and Logan was our baby, and so he's struggling with
not being the baby anymore,
and sharing and all the things. And so it was hard. And so, but we're like, we're in it. This is what God has called us to. Like, we're going to give it our best shot. 2 weeks in, we get a call that they found a home to take the 3 siblings. And so I remember talking to our case manager at the time, and I was like, oh, that's great.
Right.
And she was like, so I'm going to come pick them up tomorrow. And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
No. I don't think you understand, ma'am. They have gone through so much, and we have made so much progress. Like, if you take them out of our home and into this other home,
start over.
What are you doing? And I remember her pausing, and I'm sure she was thinking, oh, this sweet foster mom has no idea, like, her role in this. And she was like, well, I will still be by around whatever 4:00. I don't even remember what time she said.
Right. And
at that time I realized, I was like, oh, I have no say. They don't care what I think.
Nope.
In this moment. And so I asked, I was like, well, can I at least drop them off? And so she allowed me to at least drop them off at this other foster home. And I got to do that. And it was in that moment, I went and took them they were doing a weekend visit first to see if it was going to be a good fit before they like firmly committed as a new placement. And so I dropped them off, and then I just went and cried in a parking lot by myself. Like I was just this mess. And then I was trying to be patient and wait and not check in like every hour to the foster mom of like, how are they doing?
Right.
And the first morning, like she sends me a text and I was like, oh, she's communicating. I can find out information. So I asked her how she slept, because at that point, the girl we'd made progress, but it was still 3 hours to get her to sleep every night. And the doctor prescribed melatonin, and it still took
3 hours
that long every night. And I asked her, I was like, how did the night go? And she was like, oh, she did great. And I was like, what? What do you mean she did great? And she was like, oh yeah, we put her in bed, and she just asked where her older 5-year-old brother was, and we told her he was in the next room, and she was like, okay, and she went to sleep. And I was like, in that moment, I was a little jealous.
Sure.
But then it also made me realize the bond that these siblings have.
Right.
Because she, as a 2-year-old, felt safe because her 5-year-old brother.
Because he'd probably been her caregiver.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And so it was also in that moment that, like, I got the piece that, okay, this is what's best for them, even though it doesn't feel good to me, and even though I have a hard time letting go because of my plans and my expectations of what the Lord was going to use us for.
Right. What I signed up for.
This is good, and this is what God intended.
I think that's the piece that we hear that a lot. Like, people say, I can't foster because I get too attached, right? You're 2 weeks in, and that's the story. Even though you had already committed to, like, we're going to foster, we don't want to, we're not anticipating adopting. We know that they're going to come. We know that they're going to leave. But that's the piece that we hear people say so much, is like, well, I would get too attached. That's why I can't foster. And I've gotten more snarky over the years when I've done info meetings, when I'm like, yeah, we don't actually want psychopaths fostering. We want people that will get too attached, and their heart will be broken when these kids leave, like it was for you. So how did your kids handle that? I'm sure you and Jason handled that very differently. But how did that first realization of like, oh, this letting go is going to be harder maybe than I anticipated?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely hard, and it did help that the foster mom allowed us kind of access, and we kind of gave her space, and she wanted time, which I totally respected, of having at least a month where they were in her house fully before we were to interact. But I was at least able to text communicate, and she would send pictures. So that helped me. Kylie at the time she would have been 9, almost 10. She broke, and she cried, I don't know, every day for probably 2 weeks after they left, because she doesn't understand. And she attaches, I feel like in some cases she attaches more than I do to the kids that we've had. And so having to like navigate her through that each time it's gotten easier, right, in a sense, because we've had so many different kids come and go now, but that first one was rough, and it was hard holding her, and then also at the same time knowing God was still calling us to do this again.
We're gonna go again
to her, and to us. And so the boys almost every time when the kids leave, they're like, oh, are we gonna get to see him again? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, oh, okay. And they,
off
to play, no sweat off their back, no big deal. And so walking with her through it it's been sweet, and it's been meaningful, and I can see the way the Lord is kind of positioning her heart, because she does attach so deeply to them when they come, and what he'll use that for in her future.
Right.
I'm excited to look forward to.
So got into it because the Lord led you to. not what you envisioned,
Mm-mm.
especially your first case looked like. How did going through all of that open your eyes, change your view, make you feel differently, or maybe understand God differently about how God loves us, about how, like how he sees, I guess how he sees us, like your relationship with the Lord. How did that shift after you actually got into fostering?
In a lot of ways. Again, because I'm a planner, because I like control, because and honestly, before foster care, like I really, as much as chaotic and drowning that I felt, like I still had control of what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who we saw and what was happening and who did what and who could go where and everything. And so foster care played, I tell people, this is not necessarily like a slogan to like recruit foster families, but if somebody is really wanting to learn to truly be dependent on God, like this is it.
Truth.
This is your avenue. Like step into it and he will wreck you and he will force you to be dependent on him because there's no other option. It's either quit foster care or depend on him. Like those are
your options.
And so every case we got, he would strip away different plans and expectations that I had put on how he was going to work in this. And so over the past 5 years, like my ability to just trust him and be okay with it has gotten easier, and to know that I may not see the outcome and what is going to happen, but he's walked me through enough to help me to realize he loves them more than I could ever love them. And I've seen him in the situations that we've been able to kind of connect more to the biological parents and hear their stories and hear what they've walked through and just see their like brokenness and how he still pursues them. And it's hard at the same time because I watch his love and I watch his pursuit and I see so clearly him drawing them to himself, and yet it's their choice if they come or not. And it's not like he ever is like, okay, I'm done with them.
Right.
I'm going to write them, whatever.
Yeah.
Which I wrestle with. Like there's that scripture that talks about the disciples and Jesus telling them to dust their boots off if the town, doesn't take them in, but watching him work and watching how pursuant he is of not just these kids, but the parents in our specific cases, at least just reminds me like he is a God who pursues. He is a God who doesn't give up and isn't thwarted just because somebody says no right off. And
he actually doesn't need us to fix them. He didn't need you for those 3 kids forever. And I think that's one of the things, talking about, you can come into foster care if you want to get rid of your control issues. But also I think it's one of those things where especially Western culture, right? We think we can fix everything, that if we work hard enough or we do A plus B plus C, then we're going to fix whatever the thing is. And I think that's one of the many things that foster care, being in the system, and taught me was like, one, I may have a season and I'm called to that season and I should steward that season really well. You had 2 weeks, like you were obedient. You were like, yes, I'm going to love these kids. I'm not going to sleep at night. It's going to mess up our routines. My daughter's going to, be heartbroken, but we're going to be obedient that 2 weeks. And then I got to let go.
Yeah.
And then the next, 17 years have nothing to do with me. Right. And I have to be, the Lord gave me a picture when we were in court with one of our kids of like palms up. Like you cannot hold on to them, hold on to your plans, hold on to whatever. You have to just be, okay, if you put it in my hands, I'm going to steward it. And when you take it out of my hands, I'm going to let it go. Because otherwise, if I keep chasing that thing, if you kept chasing those kids, then you couldn't have been ready for the next kids that were coming. And there was more kids that the Lord wanted to bring through your home for a season.
Yeah. And I think it's truly just watching and trusting that the Lord takes those seeds. I mean, in churches, you know, we talk about scattering seeds of the gospel. And I feel like that is what foster care allows so beautifully if families take advantage of that opportunity. Because, I mean, we took in at the beginning, it was just 1 and 2-year-olds. Like, they're not even hardly talking to us, right? Like, they've got behaviors and they've got emotions and feelings and opinions, but they're not verbally communicating or able to fully take in, you know. But being able to pray over them and trusting that the prayers that we've prayed, that God will still use in their lives, even if I don't see it, because we haven't been able to keep in contact with most of them past reunification. But knowing and trusting, okay, he brought them to us, he used us, we've prayed, we did what we could do, and now we're trusting that he's going to bring other people into their lives to draw them to himself later on.
So we talked a little bit about bio families, and I know this case you didn't get specifically to interact with them, but other cases, other groups of kids that you have. So talk about that piece from your like sheltered upbringing. I don't even know people live this way. I don't know kids are treated this way, to then, oh, this is heartbreaking. Like, can't even talk to anybody about it. This is what happens to kids, which means mom and dad allowed it, did it, endorsed it, like in some level. Now you've got these kids in your home and you're building a relationship with bio family. How did the Lord take you from maybe how did you see the bio family to how do you see them now?
I was always one. Jason and I differ a little bit on this, and he would tell you the same thing. I've always been for like the underdog or the outcast. And so growing up, if there was a kid in my class who wasn't like fitting in, like that was who I was drawn to want to just love and help them feel included or seen. And I think that's what it kind of comes down to a lot. And then Jason is in it, and he wants reunification when it's safe and when it's stable. But his heart is more for I'm providing safety for these kids during this time. And so going in, I mean, part of it is like being sheltered and not even knowing all the things that could be happening. And so we didn't grow up with addiction in anywhere in our realm of knowing what that even looks like or how it gets hold of people and what it affects in them. And so being able to kind of take the lens off, and my prayer is always like, Lord, I want to see them how you see them. And you've created them and you love them. And so despite what they've done, and I'm constantly reminded of my own fallacies and my own struggles and my own, like, oh my gosh, I got upset at my kid because he left his socks on the ground again. Like, you know, and then I'm like, I have the Holy Spirit in me. I have the power to overcome, and yet I'm still failing and struggling and doing things that I wish I didn't do, you know, in life. And so putting that same lens on these parents of, yes, I want their kids to be safe, and yes, I don't agree with what they did, but understanding like they're human, and most of them, they were never exposed to Jesus, so they don't have the Holy Spirit. They don't have the wherewithal to even know what to do differently. And a lot of our first two were probably different. But the majority of our cases, like the parents really were trying. They just didn't know how to do better. And so being able to love them and them see that I cared without judgment, even if we don't have relationship to this day, like I know the Lord used, because so many parents can come in with like walls up to foster parents.
Because ultimately as foster parents, we're seeing them on their worst, probably one of their worst days. Like they're, you know, as far as being a parent, there's nothing worse than a state system coming in and saying, you're doing this so poorly, we're going to take your kids and give them to a stranger. And that's what I've seen in you over the years, getting to know you and see you, is like you are that fierce underdog for these bio families, for moms and dads, and cheer them on, in some of the most hopeless situations. You're still their cheerleader of like, you can do it, like you can overcome, and just being that constant influence on, or just encouragement to them of like, it's worth it. Like, I know the deck's stacked against you, but keep trying, keep going to the classes, keep trying to find the job, keep getting away from the abusive relationship, all the things that, there's so many things that they have to do. And yet you still defend the kids that are in your home and fight in a system that doesn't always help the right decision play out, unfortunately.
And I think it does come back to just that open-handedness of praying. I heard a pastor talk once about, you pray for what you want, but you're open-handed so that you're okay with what God gives. Right. And so that is my mindset going into each situation, and each of the kids that are brought in is my prayer is always going to be reunification and restoration, because I'm a firm believer that, like, if God is the originator of life and he is that creator, he would not create a life to be born in a womb to then immediately want to place them somewhere else.
Exactly.
And so if that was his decision to do, then in a perfect world without this brokenness, then that is who he wanted to have them. But we live in a broken world, and we have free will. And so that's not always going to be what happens. And so then he has these plans of redemption in other ways for these kids.
Right.
But that was the original. And so that is always my heart, and my prayer is I'm going to pray as hard as I can that these parents can have that redemption and restoration for the kids' sake, because they were given to them for a reason. But there's beauty, because we have two boys that are now ours that I did not grow in my womb. Right. And so there's beauty in the adoption and in that story too. But living open-handedly to be okay with however he decides to move and work in those kids' lives.
That's beautiful. To land the plane and kind of wrap this up, what if you could give, you're talking to Brittany, 2019 Brittany, and she's feeling the pull, but life is kind of chaotic and it really doesn't make sense right now, but you could sit down at coffee with her. What would you want to encourage her? Now you can see it on the other side, but how would you want to encourage that lady that maybe right now is wrestling and maybe hasn't even told her husband? Like, what would you say to her?
I would say always be willing and open. Living a life of surrender isn't easy, and it's not something that comes naturally, I think, for us. I think, it's easier to make the excuses and to say I don't have time, or to say I've already got this going on. No, the Lord wouldn't be asking me to do that. That doesn't make any sense, But what I have learned is it is like a discipline that I've had to tell myself, that friends will remind me, is really seeking the Lord and asking him, like, don't make assumptions of what he's calling you to do. But seek him in those. And so even if you don't feel like I can do it or I'm equipped, it doesn't matter. Like, it ultimately doesn't matter. Right. What is he calling you to do? And then actually be open and ready to hear what his answer is. And so we've had seasons where we close. It's not like we are foster and we are just bang, 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 one after the other, taking in kids. Like, we have season where he calls us and we've asked him and he says no. And that's what we do. Right. But be willing to ask him and be willing to do then what he says to do. Yeah, that's perfect. Well, thank you guys for listening today. And Brittany, thanks for sharing your story. This was not on her bingo card for January. And so I'm super grateful that she was willing to come in and share her story, because I think it's very impactful. And I know the seeds that you planted from this conversation will grow in many other people's lives. But yeah, if you've ever thought like, this is not my season, Lord, this is, and you can like list off all the things as the reasons why you should not be the one doing this right now. I hope this story encouraged you and gave you the confidence maybe to take your next most obedient step, whether that's
reaching out to us and having a conversation here at the Alliance, or maybe having coffee with a friend who's fostering, our encouragement today is just take the next most obedient step. Talk to your husband, talk to your spouse, have coffee with a friend, but just go take a next step. And we'll see you next time.